Welcome back to Spooky Happy Hour. I'm your host, Bree, and on today's episode, I'm joined by another innovator in the field, a seasoned investigator, a spiritist, and a Catholic witch. Let's welcome Nicole Nightfall. Thanks so much for being
Yay.
here.
Thanks for having me.
You are one busy lady. Not
Yeah.
only do you offer, like, there's a lot of offerings that you have on your website. You do past life readings, like mediumship and channeling, but you speak at events and investigate and teach paranormal classes in local communities. So tell me, like, what does a normal everyday look like for you, or a week look like for you?
I know that people have normal every days, but I feel like using normal in anything I do is just not an applicable description. So I actually even work a full-time job as a digital marketer too on top of this. So I do that
Wow.
and then pull myself out of the depths of hell and enter another portal of hell, but one I'd rather be in.
Hmm.
Typical, and I do readings. Sometimes if I'm working from home on like my lunch break, I'll do like a reading. Like I just like jam pack my day. And then even last night, I teach a paranormal class every month at Light Club Curiosity Shop in Warwick, New York. It's also digital, so people on Zoom can join. But we did yesterday the Estes method with the people who attended and the Delco experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with that,
I'm
but
not.
so it's having red light goggles. So you go under Estes, but with like goggles that emit like a red light because it's supposed to help you desensitize more and get more into the deprivation state. People have claimed to see images, even like yesterday. These are like, they're newbies for the most part, at least to this. And he was saying, "Oh, I saw a figure of like a man. I couldn't make out who it was, but I saw like a silhouette." So it was really cool watching people for the first time step into this and really open up, even psychically, not just to the paranormal. So I recommend people try the Delco experiment too if you haven't yet, because it definitely makes the Estes method even more layered, if you will.
Ooh, that's
Yeah.
interesting. So, in terms of like tapping into more intuitive psychic ability or whatnot, like, are you of the, belief that all of us to some degree have some type of, you know, ability to connect with the world around us in different
Yeah,
ways, I
I
guess?
I think it's in different ways. I think everybody's psychic. I say that to everybody. I think people kind of look at who want to get into this stuff, if you will, like being psychic or whatever. It's like you have this and you just have to practice. However, I believe some people have naturally stronger talents for certain things. So whether it's divination, whether it's talking to the dead, whether it's talking to angels or whatever, healing arts like Reiki, everything else. Like some people have stronger talents than others. And I think if somebody wants to get into it, they have to start exploring little bit of everything. And what I say too when people want, like when they're like, where do I start, Nicole? And I'm like, well, I want you to think back at your childhood. Like what did you want to be when you grew up? Like honor like your inner child that way, because sometimes when you're very young you're very drawn to certain things for a reason. So if you wanted to be a veterinarian, maybe you want to heal animals, it might be like a strong like psychic, or like a pet psychic, whatever, so that's like one way of telling what you can get into. So yeah, it
I
just takes
love that you
practice.
said, like, honoring that inner child, because I think so many of us get so disconnected to all of those things, mostly because we're conditioned to do so in some fashion, whether by our family or trauma, societal expectations, whatever that might be. So in terms of, you in childhood, was this always something that you had an inkling at, like at a younger age? Did you find it out later?
So I'm kind of glad you went back to this, because as you were talking, I was like, damn, I should have also mentioned pay attention to what you're really afraid of also as a child. Because when I was a kid, I was terrified of taxidermied animals. Don't laugh. I mean, you can laugh. But because my mom called me like a few weeks ago and she was like, I was thinking about when you were a kid and how terrified you were, even of like going into the haunted mansion at Disney World. Like I didn't do like scary movies. I couldn't watch Are You Afraid of the Dark? I'm dating myself here with how old I am. Like all these shows I wouldn't watch when I was very young because I was terrified.
Mhm.
And it just slowly became a curiosity after I got my first Ouija board, and then I became obsessed, and it like completely flipped to the opposite side where I was not afraid anymore, and I was extremely curious and needed to learn everything. And it was just like straight out the gate after that. So I think pay attention to also what you're afraid of, because there might be indications there of what you can end up doing. But yeah, I was seeing things when I was younger. And I think it's because, and this is what my mother said going back to that, because I was sensitive maybe to energy. She didn't say death energy, but like pretty much what she was surmising was like, I think you were just overly sensitive to the energy that these things presented, and you almost like couldn't handle it. So I was like, you know what, mom, you're pretty smart, and I'm going to use that if somebody ever asks me on a podcast or something. I'll
I
use
mean,
that
it
as
was
an
like you
answer.
were flooded with all of it and it overwhelmed, like, couldn't
Yes.
process or make sense of your experience. So it was like, I just don't want anything to do with it.
Yeah, and I was a very well-behaved child, like freakishly so, but when something like that would happen, like I would have a meltdown. Like if I was around, like terror like stricken. So it's just interesting that that had such an impact on me, because for the most part I was extremely easygoing. So
Well, no
yeah,
wonder it sticks out in your mom's head because it was so uncharacteristic of you at the time.
right.
Did she tell
Yeah.
you about her experience of like kind of what she thought that was happening then? Now it's, maybe clicking more, but
No, my parents were not into any of that. Like they're like old school. My dad was from Queens. My mom's from Long Island. If you're from New York, you know what that means. Like they're very old school Irish American, Irish, Italian American, and none of this stuff resonates. Like they were raised Catholic, especially my dad was like strictly raised Catholic, and he freaked out about this stuff. And my mom had told me a story too, that when I was very young, I was describing in great detail what it was like being in the womb. Of course, I didn't use
mhm.
that word, but I was like describing the colors and what it felt like, and like hearing the voices and stuff. And I guess it freaked my dad out so much that he like left the room. So he couldn't like cope when like these things were coming out. And I don't think my mom knew really what was going on. I think they
Mhm.
were just like, this kid's weird and we don't know what's happening. So I kind of just went into this full fledged on my own without a lot of guidance. It's just something I dove into that wasn't even in my family. So at least
Yeah.
taught in my family. But yeah.
Lots of things coming up for me because I was listening to a podcast you were on, and was it blue, the color that you saw when you were in the womb? Was that the
Yes.
did I remember that
Yeah.
correctly? Do you
Yeah.
think that, like, it's, like, for colors, shapes, like, shadow, like, any type of thing that if we had those memories or somebody tapped into that, would it all be different, or would we all experience the same? Because a lot of the same elements are in, like, a
Hmm.
pregnancy. Do you know what I mean? There's, like, all these stages of development and things are rapid, and like I wonder if it's all very similar, or if we would have our individual experiences in the womb with before we're even developed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't spoken to anybody else who's had that. I'm sure other people have had the experience, but it hasn't come up in day-to-day conversation. For me too, I don't know if you remembered anything like that when you were young, but I don't know. So, and again, maybe it's, we talked about people have certain gifts or what they perceive psychically. Maybe even in the womb, you perceive things differently. I don't know, but I would imagine it's fairly the same, because where the hell else are we going physically? So, they
Right.
might have a similar experience if they remembered.
Yeah, I didn't know, like, in terms of, like, readings, or for people if anybody had ever said that to you, because I would be so
Mm-mm.
interested to see how, if someone else had a similar memory, like, how they differed or how similar that they, would be. So that was fascinating. When I heard that, I was like, "Whoa," I was like, "That's stream of consciousness, from before you're an entirely developed human until, right now, just that it's there." Like, that's fascinating to me. It's blowing my mind.
Yeah, and the thing is too, like when I've done readings, I mean, I've never had that come up, but I guess trigger warning, but when people either have a miscarriage or like an abortion and sometimes the child comes through, like they don't talk about that stage. And what's interesting to me is they always show up as like an older child. Like they don't show up as like a baby. They show up in like a form that I guess they want to present themselves as, and they don't really talk about that entire thing. It's interesting how they just skip that part.
Yeah, well, and it's funny that you say that. I had one of the girls on my paranormal team, but also, one of my best friends, she had just had a mediumship reading, and the same thing happened, like, a person who was said to have maybe had a miscarriage or whatnot, like that child had come in and didn't even know that that existed, like, didn't even know that that had happened, and then went
Mhm.
back later and talked to that person. They were like, "I've never told anybody that in my entire life. Like, what
Right.
how is that, person attached to you, and what did they look like?" And so just being able to take on, like, whatever form that they want so that they can bring a message across, like, and I think that's beautiful, not ever having to have the child in front of you, but knowing that there is a version of them that looks a certain way and presents a certain way.
Yeah, I think it's their way to of communicating, that they're okay. Maybe that sounds weird, but I think it's their way of being like, "Hey, I'm thriving on the other side, and this is who I am over here, and I'm okay." Like that the energy source is still existent. So yeah, I think it's interesting that they choose like a form though, like that that's older to communicate all the time,
Right. Absolutely, and
all the
I
time.
did hear that was, like, a little bit of a common experience that, like, they might show up as a different age, and even some other and even some others, maybe they didn't want
Mhm.
to appear as their older or frail or bedridden, sickened, self. Maybe they do
Yeah,
show up as, like, when they were 20, like, that's how I think that if my grandpa would ever, like, had showed to me if I would ever see him, I think that he would choose to, like he was, like, played the guitar and loved country music, and he kinda looked like he'd be in, like, I don't know, some, like, older, like or even, like, Elvis Presley's band or something, like, he was always just slick and sly, and, like, that's kinda, like, how I, remember him, and I've never even met him at that point in time. But
yeah.
it is just, like, it's cool that they can maybe present as their best selves, their most authentic, who they believe that they are.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard when I have like a 45-minute, hour-long reading and it's like one they wanna connect to because you kind of somehow get back to that moment sometimes, like the moment of death, and it's not always, sometimes they don't want you to see it at all, and that's okay, I respect that. But sometimes when, I'm just gonna speak for myself because I can't speak for every single psychic that's out there or medium, but I kinda go back to, like, the moment of connection that crossed them over. So sometimes I will feel, of course, not to the degree they felt it, but like phantom pains. I'll feel
Mm.
some of the stuff that they went through, and a lot of them do try to segue me out of that moment as quickly as possible. So it is there with some of them, but like even somebody I read last week, it was like they did not even want to mention how they passed. They did not want to like anything. Like, so it was hard for me to like validate, even because sometimes you want to say that so you can validate that it's them, but a lot of the spirits don't want this. So then you have to find other evidential stuff to connect them to that spirit.
Yeah, and I like that you use the word evidential too, because I didn't know there were different types of mediums and how they and how you receive certain messages. People may see like actual visions. People may just have hear things. People may see symbols that mean certain things. So for you, in terms of being a medium, is there any other word that you use with the medium title to describe you?
I struggle with labels so much, Bree. This is so hard for me. I can
That's
never
okay, and
pick
you
one.
don't have to
It's,
label it.
but I do try to be evidential as possible because I feel like what else? How else do they know that it's really them? Um, so I guess I'm an evidential medium, but even like medium's hard to call myself, which I do generally speaking, so people know at least what I do. Because when I say I'm a channel, people are like, I don't know what that is, and I have to like
Hmm.
explain what that is, and it's kind of just like another level of mediumship under the umbrella where it's like sometimes the spirit can host me, which can get scary. So I try to like reel that in sometimes, whereas like I might not necessarily have their voice, but say words that they said, again, feel things that they felt. So it's kind of like you become a host sometimes for the spirit when you're a channel.
It's
So
kinda like you
so
take
that
on mannerisms, like, you might if
yeah.
somebody has, like, a southern drawl, you might start talking with one and you don't really notice it, but, like, they might connect like, "Hey, wait."
Right, and I've had that happen where I'm reading, even over Zoom, one really stands out, and I said, I guess, a string of words that he had always said, and I did like a mannerism, and it freaked her out. Like, and she was having the reading like with her husband. They were there trying to connect to somebody. So there's been times where it has come through, but it's hard to pull yourself out. So technically, I'm a channel, a psychic channel, and evidential at the same time. So yeah, I don't know, give me a label, maybe I got it. That's kind of how I feel. So, and everybody's got a different term these days for everything where it does get confusing. So I kind of just let people experience what I have to offer. And if you want to give me labels, it's, fine. I'm not going to get crazy about
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
I think that there's, in doing some of the podcasts, like people have, those certain things like, no, I don't like to say this because that means this and that's not for me. It's this for me. And I think that people, strongly hold on to those. And I want to make sure that, I respect them too moving forward
Yeah,
to
of
say, like,
course.
what is your definition of, those things? And having that ability to channel and living in an area with it's kind of like rampant with like folklore and legend. Do you ever receive
Mm.
any messages like pertaining to like legend stories that you can connect to like in your area what's going on or what has happened in the past?
A cardinal just flew by the window as you said that. That's hilarious. So if you're talking about like with me being in the Hudson Valley, New York, we've got, and I don't live in the town, but like Sleepy Hollow, you got Headless Horseman. There's Rip Van Winkle, who's also prominent in the Catskills out here. I haven't connected to anything like that. I mean, I've been to Sleepy Hollow. I actually went with Amy and Ryan from Full Dark Paranormal. We met up and we went there. I don't know if you've ever spoken to them, but they're great. You should totally have them on. We went there and it was kind of like we were just having a fun time, and we couldn't really investigate because of course we went during like the fall season, so it was like crazy. You can't really
Mm.
midday go in the old cemetery and do that. But with where I specifically grew up and I moved, there was a lot of mob activity. It was even rumored as one of the places that Jimmy Hoffa might be buried. They never found his body. And my dad was convinced he was like under our bar, but my dad was always trying to tie himself into something cool like that. So it was the Italian, wannabe gangster in him that was like, oh, like the Jimmy Hoffa is buried under a bar. And I'd be like, I don't know, Dad. But there was in White Lake, New York, it's called. So there's even the White Lake Mansion House, which is this beautiful, unfortunately falling apart
Mm. Oh.
house where a lot of the gangsters used to go. And I think there's even like secret, and I've never been inside, unfortunately, but there's like secret passageways and stuff like that. And they used to move money through there. And
Cool.
right across overlooking is White Lake. And it's rumored, and there's some validity to this, that like the mob would like whoever off anybody in the city or whatever and bring and dump them in the lake. So there's all that. That lake always creeped me out, but then again, sometimes lakes like skeeve me out in general because they're kind of gross. But
That's true.
um,
I can
yeah, but
understand
there's
that.
there's such a heavy energy out there. And whenever I bring people to like go visit some of the spots, they're like, Nicole, this makes sense that you're from here because it's creepy. It's always overcast. It's like doom and gloom. So just that definitely picked up on a lot. And who knows if maybe that's why I got super into the stupid, because our bar was like crazy haunted too. So it was like I kind of grew up with this like all around me, these like legends of these like gangsters and the haunted bar with like hearing doors swinging open, your name being called like all
Oh,
the
it's
time,
like you
lights
couldn't
going off.
escape it.
Yeah, so it was like you have no choice, conform. Yeah.
Right? I'm gonna shove it all around you in any way that I can, so you're forced to like embrace it and be who you are.
Yeah. So when it comes to like those local legends, yes, I've picked up on that stuff. And when it comes to like ancient stuff, like again, did not I would love to pick up on the Headless Horseman. Oh my God, I'd just die of happiness, and that could be the final thing in life that I experience, and I'd be okay with it. Because he
Right?
is one of my favorites ever. But no, nothing that legendary, unfortunately, but just
I was
local
gonna say,
legends, yeah.
however many years of life that you have left, hopefully it does come up into some of that. You know what I mean? Because that would be
Yes.
awesome.
Instead of the Reaper, the Headless Horseman comes to me, I'd be okay. I'd be
Yeah,
okay with
right.
that for
Well,
sure.
in having to like almost be forced to confront that or embrace it at some point in time. There's also the other half of that your parents, this was like completely really foreign to them, and that they
Mhm.
were more religious and Catholic. And like when I saw the word like Catholic in front of witch, I was like, that seems funny to me. I want to
Mhm.
know more about that. So I've never seen those two words, I feel like, in the same exact sentence. So
Yes, and you fell for my marketing trap because
right.
people ask me, and it gives even Death Witch. They're like, "What's that?" And I'm like, "Come on over, and we'll talk about it when I'm at events." So this is getting deep into history of Catholicism that might be triggering for some hardcore Catholics, but Catholicism is really built on colonization. And a lot of the practices that they do are actually stolen from a lot of the pagans, a lot of the African traditional religions, like that they went in trying to conquer and convert. So they took on even some of their witchiness, their spiritualism, to try to like be like, hey, come on over here, we're kind of like you and we've got this. So there's certain rituals um and certain things that they do, even like a lot of the exorcism rites, like some of that, not word for word, but like the process of it is stolen from African traditional religions, like when they would do their own version of exorcism. So there's certain things that already makes Catholics inherently witchy. And I always say being Catholic is the gateway drug. If you start to question the religion a little bit, you're going to turn into a witch. It's just something I always say, because it's not that far of a jump. You even have like the saints, because it's not like other Christian denominations or Abrahamic religions where it's like things are like pretty strict, where it's just Jesus and you can't worship nothing else. In Catholicism, you have all the saints, you have Mary, you have all of these deities, if you will, that already, again, you can easily translate over, and you petition them for certain things that you want or you need. So you don't have to just work with Jesus. You can work with any saint, and you're still, hey, I'm still a Catholic. So in my opinion, that makes you very much a witch, regardless, even if you're just calling yourself a Catholic.
Yeah, I think that it's so, in my childhood growing up like very strictly like Protestant, and then that
Hmm.
was like my mom side of the family, but my dad I think more hung on to that, but his side of the family was more Russian Orthodox and like
Mm,
very strict like Catholic, and we would go to some service that they had, or maybe someone got confirmed and we wanted to support our family member or something. I remember sitting there and I'm like, what the fuck is everybody doing? You say something, I say something, you're all kneeling. Do I stand now? What is happening? Like it was
yeah,
very like I felt like kind of like out of the united front that everybody else was in. And then later I was like, oh, it's kind of like this coven. Like they all have their
yeah,
own, they all have their own rules, their own rituals, like what happens, how they respond to each other, and like they get it. And like I kind of connected it later, and that was more American Horror Story, not because I'm anywhere as well researched into the occult as you are, but it was
oh,
like that's kind of what it reminded me of. Was I was like, yeah, that's what this feels like.
yeah,
But the symbolism there, I think it's just like lost on some people, and that if you challenge that, like you said, and you can see it for what it's worth, you might you might go down the witchy track. And if you don't, you're gonna double down on how bad that it is. But like as a
hmm,
Protestant, we'd always be like to my other half of the family, like, how is it that you like worship like false idols then, right? If you're praying to
right.
Mary, or like there's a saint for losing stuff, right? There's like,
Anthony,
okay,
yeah,
right. So like it's like, oh, I'll just ask whatever. And I'm like, isn't that like goes against everything that I know? All of those strict like black and white type things. And
hmm,
it's cool though that people can take and kind of like pick and choose, because I think that was like another big thing. You can't pick and choose things from different stuff and make it your own. And now I'm
right,
learning like, well, one, I can, and I have been, and two, other people have built that their whole lives. Like
yeah,
women who want to hold on to their traditions, but they get married, or like, they have been colonized, so they're going to like sprinkle it in like food or gardening or
yeah,
this or that. And so just like learning more about it and then hearing you say it now, I'm like, oh yeah, like it's just another one of those realizations that this has always really been there. I
yeah.
just haven't had people in life talk about it until now.
Yeah, and I think people focus a lot on the religion and spirituality, but they don't look at like the day-to-day things that are passed down culturally. Like even like my dad throwing coins in a brand new car for good luck, like witchy, you're witch, you're witch. Um, like the whole, garlic rhetoric with vampires keeping away. That's from back in, at least I know in Italy, from my own personal practice, that wards evil spirits away. It keeps away witchcraft. It keeps away all this stuff. And these are things that are still like passed down in our culture and in our media that are still like very, very witchy. And I see it all the time. And I'm just like, the flashing lights are there, but people are like oblivious to it because they don't know like the origins of certain things.
Mhm.
So when I say I'm a Catholic witch, it's because I'm still a Catholic. I'm a confirmed Catholic. So, because you do have to be initiated to be Catholic, which I have to tell people, you can't just be like, oh, I'm Catholic now. Like, you have to go through, you have to be confirmed, you have to go through all the sacraments and receive them. I just decided, you know what, not a big fan of the church and how they do things. I don't resonate with that, but I do the spirituality of it resonates with me. And I tell people who are struggling with this, because I understand there's a lot of religious trauma, and it's okay if people completely abandon it. But I tell them, try your best in your healing process to separate the institution from the spirits. Because if you're still feeling connected to Jesus, Mary, or even just the saints, like try not to let that darken your connection to them. If you Some people go crazy with paganism, or even like working with infernals or whatever, and that's fine. But some people I see, sometimes they come like fully back, and even me,
Mhm.
like I have other ones that I work with, and I'm still loyal to, like deities and stuff, but I always, like, I mainly rely and came back to like the saints, because it's just with me. It's what walks with me, is what I say. So
Mhm. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that that's in my own personal journey, very strict religious family really on both sides, but um it was more of like the damning. So lots of religious trauma here too. Like I was like the persecutor, like if you're doing this, then you're going to hell type
yeah,
deal. Like, and that was very strong for me. But going through my counselor education and psychology and seeing, I don't know, my first maybe my third black person in life ever when I went to college, and being like, oh, there other things exist outside of the only thing I've ever seen in my life, was like this slippery slope until I was like, I want to know everything about the world, all cultures, like hop on a
Yeah.
plane, take a 2 week, whatever in Europe half the time. Right. So now I've experienced way more things than I even knew was out there. So it did force me to challenge those things, pretty much abandon it completely. And then now coming into my own spiritual practice, my own, witchiness, my own abilities, like I find myself like if my mom's like, "Oh, do you want to come?" and she like cleans our local church, the church that, we all had grown up in for all of our lives. And every time I go back there, I want to cry.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily connect it with like my own uh like trauma with it per se, because that's, I feel like, over here and separate, and I've already mostly dealt with that. But there is, like, when you said like that feeling, if you get like drawn or something like is specific about that, like there's something there. So I've always wondered, is like, oh, is it my connection to the music, because it's the music that like I hear that makes
Yeah.
me, feel sad or whatnot. But now that you say that, I'm like, oh, I want to explore that a little bit, because
Yeah,
it sounds
and
like it could be
obviously,
important.
yeah, and take it one step at a time because you don't know, like you said, you don't fully know what the trigger is. Like, it could just be a memory tied to it that maybe even you forgot, or like events around church that could have happened. Who knows if there was like family drama going on? It could be a number of things that you tie in specifically. Again, probably the music, because music like has a special place in your brain, right? Like with your memory. So yeah, I would take that one step at a time with that. And if you want to completely abandon it, that's fine. So maybe you just have to heal that and then find something else that resonates with you. Like, I don't like push it on people, but I do see sometimes, and it's interesting because my friend's actually, she just got her degree to be a psychologist, and she's focusing on people in the witchcraft field because there's so much unhealed trauma that I think sometimes people, for example, grew up Christian and then they go like the complete opposite way because they want to be like a badass and they become infernal practitioners, which is okay. But to me, like, there's certain paths that um are not cut out for everybody. Like, how we talked about like certain psychics need certain gifts. Like, there's certain spirits and things that walk with you and things you're made of that might not resonate with certain spiritual paths. And it's okay. People, you're going to mess up. Like, you're not going to do things perfect the first time. But like, I see a lot of people, especially going into not even just infernal practitioners, but even like African traditional religions who are like not African. And like, sometimes their lives get completely messed up because it's not meant for them.
Right.
And sometimes it's okay, it starts off okay, but sometimes it might just be like a phase of your life where it serves, and then it's time to like move on to something else. So there's something I think to the psychology of that, where people um either want like power or control because they didn't have power or control in their lives growing up, and a lot of them are like, let me be as scary as possible to intimidate other people. And I see that a lot in people who get into like occult spaces, especially like witchcraft. Like, let me be scary. And even in the paranormal field, I'm going to call a lot of people out. There's people who say they're like XYZ, but they're not actually XYZ. Like, they don't know anything about, like, especially somebody like saying like they're in brujeria, but they can't even pronounce it, and they don't know
Mm.
what it takes to do that. And they're my color, and they're like, this is what I do. And it's like, you just because you read a book doesn't mean you know anything about it, because the people writing the books are not actually people born and raised in those practices. They're, again, people that have skin like me who just like heard something and now they're trying to make money off of it. So it's people have to be careful because the spirits are also listening all the time. And I feel like people who do that too always get their comeuppance. There's like something I see, I'm like, oh, that's because of this and that. Like, of course it's a theory I have, I don't know for sure, but I don't know. It's just a
Right, but
mess.
I
Yeah.
do think that it's like that, because I think any type of like occult, mystery, spirituality, any type of practice that it kind of gives you a little bit of, like you said, power and control. And if nobody has had it, I think that they do want to take it and make it their own. And sometimes they have those blinders, tunnel vision, because it means one thing to them. Even if they are not consciously aware of it, it's driving their tunnel vision to, I want this thing. And they will, I think, take it to more extreme because they're not grasping what they need to in order for it to be theirs. And there are cultural practices that do need to be considered. And if it's not open, then, don't do that. And like
Yeah.
even me, like, even though it was, marketed as an ethically sourced and whatnot, like for 6 months in terms of getting into my own spirituality, I was like, I'll use sage. And I'm like, now I've switched to rosemary. Do you know what I mean? Just like
Yeah.
being like, like you said, like, you're gonna fuck up. You're gonna have things that, like, you don't know what you know until you know it, but then when you do know it, you have to do something with it. If you have the
Right.
knowledge and you're doing it anyway, like, this is more of, like, an intentional, choice that you're making, and I don't think that there's a lot of great resources for people because I think most people go to their online social media, and you can find anything that you want on there to really confirm that whatever you're
Mm.
doing is okay. And
Well, that's what
so
ding,
how
ding, ding, ding. Yep.
how do you manage all of that? Like, seeing other people and, like, people coming to you, I'm sure, with preconceived notions. You know what I mean? Of
It's
like, "I
it's
can do this
it's
because of X, Y, and Z."
it's a lot of checking entitlement because I think people feel very entitled to things, and sometimes we're not. It's okay to educate and learn about things, but there is such an entitlement, and you just said it, like, nail on the head. People will look for anybody to validate that it's okay to use something, that it's okay to do something. Like, they can hear no, 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 no from 12 people, and they're just going to keep looking till somebody tells them it's okay.
Mhm.
I've had a lot of people come to me too. I don't know if you were on. I think you said, because I watched one of your episodes, and you had said you just joined TikTok, so you weren't on TikTok with the whole white sage. You're
Mhm.
canceled if you can't use white sage, or like people are coming for you, like, and not just like a little bit, like you're done kind of thing.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
And I had a lot of people coming to me who were clients or followers who were asking me, can I use white sage? And I'm like, I'm not the person you should be asking, because I
Mm.
know they asked however many people, or they thought because we are the same skin color that it'd be like, yeah, it's okay. But so I took the initiative to, and thankfully she was kind enough to explain this to me, and she did not have to, because again, you shouldn't feel entitled for explanation. Somebody in the Blackfoot tribe I spoke to, she lives in Canada, and I said, so what's the deal with this? The white, like, why is it? I kind of just want to understand so I can explain to people and even myself, like, why is it not okay? And she explained to me that women aren't even allowed to use it, because when they use it in their sacred ceremonies, it's believed, just in case if they're bleeding, like if they're having their period, it can invoke negative spirits. And she explained to me too that it's like an initiation almost, in order to be able to use it. Like, it's held in high regard in the tribes. And also, it's used to invoke, not to banish. So I see paranormal investigators all the time using white sage left, right, and center to banish. And dude, you're just calling in spirits. Not
Mhm.
necessarily bad, but like, and they're not using it properly how it's like meant to be used. And of course, there's other properties if people want to debate. Like, at the end of the day, do what you want to do. I'm not going to like preach at you, but if somebody's going to ask me, I'm going to be like, dude, this is why I don't use it, and why you using it can also be dangerous. Because sometimes you could tell people, hey, this is cultural appropriation, it's offensive, and they're gonna be like, yeah, whatever. But if you tell them, hey, this might actually hurt you, then they tend to listen.
Right,
Which is
because it's
interesting to me.
impacting them directly,
Right.
It's kind of in terms of some cultural things, going on right now, us versus them type thing, or you versus me, whatever. It's like, if I can find something that I wanna do, I'm gonna hold on to it until it impacts me, then I might see where you're coming from, and there's not a lot, I think, of people saying like, "Oh, well, how I do this may be taking away from
Yeah.
anyone being able to appreciate your culture and where you're from and how you move throughout life and what you have to offer, unless it
Right.
directly and negatively impacts me, and then I might give a shit."
Right.
And it's
Exactly.
hard to
Exactly.
it's hard to, like, I don't know, it's hard to see in just, like, our everyday, like, waking life, but it's also hard to see when there are so many, hardworking people, of brown, black communities and other, communities, and most of, spiritual people that I've seen at maybe conventions or that I've had readings for myself, most of them look like me.
Yeah.
So it's hard to
Yep.
be like, I think I struggle with a little bit of the guilt of, like, what can I do to check myself to still have my own practice, but also be able to, shine lights or appreciate others for what they have to offer. Like, one of my colleagues, um, she's Latina, and she had said, we were talking about something. She was like, "Do an egg wash," and I said, "What's that?" And she's
Mm,
explaining it to me, and I said, "Am I allowed to do this? Like, are you asking me to be able to do that?" She's like, "Open practice." She's like, "I'm telling you,
yeah.
go and do this. I will then, talk to you about your experience afterwards. I will tell you the ways that I've learned how to do that for me and my mom and my grandma, and whatever." She said, "So I can, yeah, go ahead." But I had to ask like 3 times because I don't
Yeah.
want to do something that's gonna adversely impact me, even though my intention is good.
Right. And the thing is too, if you asked another one, even if you posted that on TikTok, you're gonna get people coming for you because then there's also people, and I understand why they're extremely gatekeeping, because what happens is people that look like us again are taking things and then they're making money off of, that's like a lot of it is that we're taking and then making money off of those practices. So yes, it is. I've asked several and it's also open. In Italy, we also use eggs for cleansing. So that's the thing too. It's some of them, that the ones that come for you, and it doesn't matter what color or creed or whatever they come from, will just come for you saying, oh, that's appropriation, but they also don't understand some of that stuff originates in other cultures. Like in Italy,
Mhm.
there's even like the lemon hex that was on there that they use in brujeria, I believe. And it's like in Italy, lemons are huge for blessings or curses. Like on Christmas Eve, you bring one to like hex your greatest enemy. Like it's just like some of the stuff does is cross-cultural and not
Sure.
necessarily appropriation. But obviously if you're using one that's like strictly from that practice, like that ritual or whatever, like just be sure, I guess, to make sure, especially like for your own spiritual safety, that you're doing things. I always say try to connect with, if you know where your blood comes from, like research the practices in those cultures and like reconnect, because your ancestors are your biggest spiritual backer more than any deity, saint, whatever. Like your ancestors always got your back. It's in your blood. You carry it with you. So honor that. That's what's going to be the most powerful.
Well, and 2 things there. So I've done the ancestry DNA, which, like, sometimes I regret doing, which I'm like, "Oh my god, what are you gonna do with my information?" But, doing it, like, there were all of these things that came up that I wasn't, didn't really know or wasn't aware of. But then trying to research it, like you were saying, like, what I'm searching for is the lost shit. It's not the stuff
Yeah.
I know. So it's like, how do I get to know those
Mm-hmm.
things? Like, where are appropriate resources to be able to do that? Like, I can, I'm sure, type into chat gpt, hey, this is where my ancestors are from, give me their rituals or their background information, and be like, here's what I found on the web. You know what I like? I'm sure
Yeah.
that people could do that and think that that's exactly right, and I'm gonna go follow this path. But that's my biggest, like, struggle now, is like, what are the lost things? Like,
Mm-hmm.
pennies, like, that my grandma used to talk about. My great grandma was always like, messages from people that, were gone. Is that like a cultural thing? Is that something that is that your own symbolism from this person that's been passed down? It has nothing to do with where we're from, so I
Mm-hmm.
just so do you have any places to, or like, resources that you would share for people on that similar journey?
Well, I could tell you what I did. I mean, a lot of it's Italy for me, and Irish is predominantly. I'm pretty much down the middle. I've got some Spain and other stuff in there, but it's with Italy. I mean, there are books on. You want to look for folk magic practices, is what you really want to look for. You want to look into those everyday traditions we talked about that are passed on. You want to look at those, before, like pre-colonization. And again, it might be lost. They're like, even with the Druids, like when people say they're a Druid. No offense, when I'm already in my head, like all of that stuff was lost. So I mean, I guess like they have their own adaptation, but you're not like practicing with the original Druids because all of it was destroyed by the Catholic Church. So like does not exist. Okay, they don't exist. The research doesn't exist. So I don't know. It does start with, sometimes with a simple Google search, even on like YouTube, like researching certain practitioners who may share that same cultural background as you, and sometimes they're not in America, and you want to look for these recommendations. I'm blessed enough too, and I'm in New York, and I understand people maybe in southern states and other states are not going to have this privilege, but I live in an extremely witchy, like New York is like very open like to all this stuff. So I'm blessed. Like I even saw another Italian American practitioner who wrote books, like in person, went to like a class. So I have like a privilege there where I have access to a lot of not just the research but people in person. So if you're in a place like New York or Connecticut, like the Northeast, like research like in your area if there's people that are giving like lectures or talks or classes, because that's also where you begin. It becomes with connecting. um it's interesting because it's not all foolproof with what I've learned too, because even though I found a lot of Italian folk practice books, but it's also regional, because then there's northern and then southern Italy, and there's different, and I have both in me, but like there's different intricacies to each. It's kind of like in America, like we're one giant country and every state's kind of like different. It's the same thing. So you're going to find different practices. But I say if you want to be witchy or spiritual or practitioner, it really comes from you. And I think in order to know if you really are a witch, it comes with instinct as well. Like
Mhm.
going back to lemons, if I were to give you a lemon with no preconceived knowledge, what would you immediately think with the properties of the lemon? It's sour. What can I do with something that's sour? The rinds are bitter. What can I do with something that's bitter? Sometimes it's just following your instincts and not necessarily following a recipe.
Mhm. Yeah, and I
Does
think
that
this
make
is the yeah, it totally makes sense because it
Yeah,
resonates with me on my position of when people say, "You are your own best tool." If you don't know you, you're your worst freaking tool. If
absolutely.
you have no idea what's going on in here, if you don't feel connected to yourself, if your mind-body connection
Mm,
has been severed and you are so far away from what is happening in here, that tool sucks. And it's
yeah,
not to say that like you suck, it's just that that tool is not for you right now.
yeah.
Maybe it will be in the future, but maybe you do have to rely on maybe someone that you trust, or maybe there is a certain like person or object that you have that makes you feel calm or comfort, and that's the only thing that that's what you can use. That's the thing that you can maybe hold on to. But I don't think that everybody is their own best tool.
Well, and a lot of it's insecurity led. And the problem is sometimes you could start off confident, and all it takes is meeting the wrong person in this field and in the practice, and they can completely make you insecure. And that's where you really have to know yourself first and know that you are the main power source, if you will, because a lot of people unfortunately become victims in this. Like people talk about like, oh, Catholic being predatory. You want to talk about witches and practitioners being predatory, especially ones that have been not even just men. Like I've dealt with a lot of scary things in my life with people, and even people that get in your head who you think are your friends. It's just you've really got to like be able to even snap yourself out of it and make sure you're surrounding yourself with multiple different people, not just people within the same, not that I was ever technically in a coven because that freaks me out, but like in the same circle. Because sometimes it
Mhm.
like spiritual psychosis comes like things I fell victim to. I'm not perfect. I've had a huge healing journey, like a roller coaster ride in this, and a lot of people look for victims too in this field. A lot of narcissism, a lot of sexual predators, a lot of this stuff is going on. So if you don't innately have a gift within you or like some sort of sense of knowing, like you are going to absolutely be prey. So always be careful when you're trying to, like, if you're obsessively looking for a coven or for somebody to mentor you, you better research the hell out of them and take it one step at a time, because you don't know, you think you know a person, but you don't know it until you're in the fold.
Mhm. Well, it's like you were saying, like there's if something has happened to you, or maybe there's religious trauma, or there's something that makes you have a question mark and you're really searching for something, you're gonna find it. You're gonna find something. And so, like, what I hear you saying is that really the lesson in it is know what you found and really challenge it. It's okay to say, does that resonate with me? Does that sound
Exactly.
okay? Like, how am I feeling right now? Like, when I do this, is this uncomfortable? For me, is there a reason for that? Is it because it's new, or it's because this isn't for me?
Yeah. I think if I think a lot of the red flags look for, at least with what I've learned, is, and it's changed even the way I teach people. Like yes, you could preach at them, but don't like constantly berate people if you think, because a lot of stuff is subjective. It's spirituality. A lot of it's subjective to the person. Sometimes there's not black and white rules. Sometimes there's a lot of gray. And each person's different. So if you have people who are constantly trying to tell you, no, 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 or you're doing this wrong, sometimes that boils down to not necessarily education but control. And it's like
Mhm.
any cult, it's the same thing. It's just the same stuff in like a different, with a different label on it. And unfortunately a lot of people going through spiritual awakenings or looking to connect to some sort of spirituality and community like are very easy targets, or they fall victim to this stuff. So it's just like I always say, like, word of caution, if you've got somebody constantly like telling you no, 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 like, and there's just like a tone to it, where it's not learning, it's
Mhm.
more like a dictatorship, then you really got to keep your eyes open. Because sometimes you don't even realize you're in it until it's too late. Like a cult, it's the same thing.
Right. And I think I found some degree of that in terms of studying tarot, right? Was that like, no, like this is like everyone's like your own interpretation of this card and what it means to you is just as
Mm,
important as the traditional meanings of these things. But you'll get people that are like, no, that is way off base from what it's supposed to be. So like that's not it or whatnot. And so I'm sure that one, you've seen it, Ben face that challenge, and you've created your own tarot deck, like Light Up the Night. So,
yeah,
and it was this like juxtaposition. So, like the usual darkness that you may, be
hmm,
associated, like even the word, like even nightfall. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's just this juxtaposition. So, and you called upon your inner child to be able to pull that energy and your Lisa Frank affinity, super
yes,
showing. And it's a beautiful deck from like the pictures that I saw. So it's like, how do you, in terms of being a tarot practitioner too, like what was your journey like with that, and coming into creating your own tech, how did you navigate any of those intricacies?
Um, so yeah, you hear that you'll get different types of readers. Everybody's got a very strong opinion and thinks they know everything. That's the problem. And it's in the paranormal too. It's like all occult spaces. I don't know why. Like all of these things are pretty much unknown. Sometimes there's definitives, but sometimes there's not. And like you'll have people who are like, that's not what that card means. Okay, but when you have these cards next to it, it means something else. You know, like people get very obsessed with the nitty gritty. Meanwhile, each card has various different meanings, and me as again a psychic channel, a lot of the times, yes, I know tarot inside and out, but I mainly read by what jumps out at me on the card. Okay, so there's a hawk on it, so what does that mean to, there's a falcon on it, what does that mean to me spiritually, to the person I'm connecting with right now? So it's like the symbols that jump out at me that help me like connect to spirit, and I haven't had any complaints. So that's how I read. And sometimes if that's drying up, then I'll rely on what the tarot card means. But ultimately it was made by a psychic channel, like the original Rider Waite Smith deck, which everybody forgets the Smith part, who like literally channeled the messages. They left her out, a woman of color who was a psychic channel who created this. They were just like, yeah, we'll just leave her out. So she channeled all of those, so she connected to spirit with that symbolism, and yeah, she said they say what it means. But like for you as a psychic channel or a psychic reader, it may resonate as something else. It's like if you're looking in a crystal ball, like you're going to see something different every time. So when it came to like creating Light Up the Night, of course I wanted to stick to the original meanings of the deck. But with each card, I really sat with it as a psychic channel. I was like, what images am I getting? What person am I getting? What am I? And I got a lot of criticisms for mine. I mean, everybody's a critic. Everybody gets criticisms for their tarot deck, so it's nothing new. But with mine, I guess one of the main criticisms was that there's animals and people in the same deck, and I'm just like, I don't understand how that's a criticism. Like, why do I have
Mm,
to follow your black and white rule of like there just needs to be like one? Like to me, that was like the silliest criticism. Like some were valid, but like that one, I was just like, yeah, that's stupid, you know.
mhm.
But it became. I spent a long time on this deck because as I was sitting with it too, I would be like, okay, this is changing for me, and it's kind of hard because some cards are darker than like the rest that are like super light, so it gets difficult to keep an aesthetic too with that like
Mhm.
consistent. But I did not want to segue from the specific vision I was getting from the cards, so some of it, like that was a valid criticism I thought that somebody had when they were like criticizing my deck, where like sometimes it looks like it's there's like a couple cards that look like they don't even belong in the deck, and I'm like, I know, but
Mm.
like I could not bring myself to like change it. So valid criticism, but like if I were to do it all over again, I wouldn't change
Yeah,
the
you
thing.
wouldn't change it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So that was that whole thing, and that was a lot of things too. When I released this, people were like you said, they were like, "Really? Why is this so light and cheery and whatever?" But like, I wanted to start at the beginning, honoring my inner child. What was I obsessed with as a kid? Lisa Frank.
Mhm.
I was upset, and like these psychedelic, like I was like obsessed with that. So why would I not honor that? And like with my first one, I was like, I have to start with this. I have to, because the rest of them are going to
Yeah.
be messed up. So that's
Well, you felt so strongly called to it, and it's like your inner child needed that
yeah.
expression. And I wonder, like, if there I mean, I'm sure that it's taught you many things, but if you could summarize, like, the most unexpected thing that tarot taught you, what would that be?
Oof. Well, I think a lot of, and this is why I tell all practitioners, absolutely, you need to start learning a form of divination if it's not tarot that resonates with you, which is hard, especially if people have like ADHD or ADD, or like to learn it. That's why I say also trust your instincts when you're reading it. Like some people can't. That's why that first take is like ableist to me when people are like, oh, it has to be like exactly what it is. Well, not everybody can learn like that.
Mhm.
So learn a form of divination, whatever resonates with you, even if it's just, even though I'm not crazy about pendulums, but if it's starting off with the pendulum, so you can learn to trust yourself, your energy, and outside energy, and learning to differentiate between the rest. I think with learning divination in general and tarot, it's been that is building trust within myself with messages.
Mhm.
Um, and really, especially with my specific thing, because some people do minimalist cards. I can't read minimal. I mean, I can if I just read tarot, but like there needs to be a lot of stuff going on the cards for me to like read so I can pull. So it's been learning even my own style with things and how I read, and yeah, and like really just furthering my connection with spirit and the person I'm reading.
Yeah, I think that, you hit the nail on the head in terms of any of my neurodivergent folk with ADHD, like myself.
Hmm.
I have like a go back and forth with it. Like, I know that if I can't like get into it right, I guess this is like a misconception that I had for a long time. If I couldn't get into it, if I didn't have the time, if I didn't have the focus to like, for all the conditions to be right so that I could
Yeah.
feel like a certain way, that was like my main limit on
Mhm.
doing it. So I'd see it and I'd really want to do it. I'm like, but I don't have time. I have to be at work in 15 minutes. I don't have time to like do a little meditation or find the perfect crystal or get relaxed and in my zone because it takes a while. And then I started doing these. I'm like one card wonder, and that's my theme for like each day. I'm gonna do a one card or like one shuffle wonder. So I just shuffle one time and I pick whatever comes off the top, and that is what it is. And like it was helpful for me to like take all of that rigidity and all those rules off of it. And I think ever since doing it, it's like you said, just made me trust my instincts more. It's like I don't have to have all of it to do it. Now, if I have the time to get in, to get really into the nitty-gritty like I want to, hell yeah. But it doesn't have
Yeah.
to be so black and white one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't know why people get so damn performative with things. Like I just read like like yeah, I do my cleansings and my groundings whatever, but it doesn't have to be like ritualistically right before. Like it's just you just learn to connect, and I think meditation to a degree, but even meditation is subjective to what people can do or can't do, because again, if you have ADHD or ADD, you're going to have a really hard time meditating the old fashioned way, like sitting
Oh yeah.
down, sitting still, and like so you have to find other ways to like calm your mind, I like to put it instead.
Mhm.
Because that will definitely help you connect more to spirit, because you want to be as open as possible without so many intrusive thoughts. And sometimes an intrusive thought is a message. So I always say, just like say whatever the hell you're thinking and just like trust. It really comes down to trust. It's trust falls with yourself and with spirit, just like letting go.
Mhm.
And that's meditation in general. It's that. So I think once you start practicing that, at least like learning to be calm when you're doing it and like trusting it, like it'll be better, because that's meditation in general, is trusting the process. So
Right, and it is a process, right? It's not just about like what you're going to get in that moment. Something that you get in that moment may not be applicable until tomorrow.
yeah.
Or might not even resonate with you until something happens and then you reflect back from a month before that and you're like, "Oh, wait." And there are things that have connected the dots, but you didn't experience it in that moment. And I think that sometimes people do think, "I need this right now." And what
Hmm.
they'll get upset like, "What does that mean?" And it's like, "Well, wait, there might be something else to that you're not
Yeah.
seeing in there." And it is very subjective. So when I looked at your deck, I was like, I love this because you infuse your own energy into every deck that you have, but when you create it on your own, that is your energy.
Yeah.
So I think that
I'll
that's
I'll
really
send
cool.
you one. Just give me your address. Where are you, by the
Oh
way?
my gosh, Pennsylvania. We're
Oh, you're
actually
far.
coming to Warwick in June to do Mid Orange.
When is that? Because I'll be in Ohio on June 9th. So
June 27th and 28th. We'll be
all
there
right,
for 2
well, I'll
nights. So
swing
you're
like
gonna
you
come
want and
hang out,
drop.
right?
Oh, whatever you want. I was gonna say I'll come drop off the deck or whatever, so we don't have to worry about shipping and mailing and stuff. But yeah, definitely I'll bring a deck for you for sure.
Heck yeah. Oh my
Um,
gosh, I'm so excited.
yeah, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, it'll be fun on Mid Orange. Oh my God, the stories I have of that place, my lord.
Oh, share. I'm so excited.
Oh, wait till you go there. Oh, I get chills thinking about it. I'm scared if I say his name, he's going to show up, because he followed me. He was hitchhiking on me for a while. This one, Richard Burgess, was a spirit that followed me. I have it on my YouTube channel when I went. So I was there like a couple times because I was there with the radio station in the morning, like during Halloween. But then I went there for like an investigation one night with Orange County Tourism, and he decided to follow me around to Silvio's villa that I went like a few days later. And he showed up, and I was like, you need to leave, because the people at Silvio's are very protective. And this is why I love them, of their spirits that are there. And they don't want outside scary serial killer
Mhm.
Richard Burgess there, who was like an arsonist also. I'm like, get the hell out. And when I was there too the night before, because we did like a 2-day shoot at Silvio's, um, the kitchen, there was like a fire incident too, and I didn't think it in the moment, and I was just like, oh my God. And the next day I was there, and I was up in the attic, and I'm trying to connect with the spirits up there, because it's like super intense up there too on its own, because the spirits are so active at Silvio's. And I'm just like, something else is here. And I also have this on my YouTube channel, and it's Richard Burgess, and I was like, oh my God, I need you to get the hell out. Like, don't, almost like, don't embarrass me. Like, don't embarrass me at Silvio's. And I was like, I need you to leave and not ever come back here. Like, I will deal with you later. And what's crazy is I got into and obviously I was okay. My car wasn't. I got into a fender bender before I shot that night. Like a van randomly turned into me when I was driving.
Weird.
So like around the corner from Silvio's, and it was not the Spirits at Silvio's. I know it was that from
Mm.
Mid Orange, and I'm like, God damn. So, and nobody else has really experienced him. I don't think that I've seen somebody else could have, but like whenever I shown ever since the beginning, he shows up, and I'm like, God damn, Richard, go away. Like you're just no good. This is how I
Does he
deal with
ever
spirits.
like does he like or do you remind him of somebody, or do you just have such big energy? He's like, I'm the only one that's having big
No.
energy here,
I
so I don't know.
I think the first time I was there, and I was there during the day, and I have it on TikTok too, the clip, and it's like I almost get ready to step into the furnace room, and it comes through the Phasma box. It goes furnace, and it's like the creepiest voice, and it's him. And they're talking about like fire and all this other stuff, and it was just like I felt him then, and every time I go
Mhm.
there, he like shows up. So most people, normal people, would be like terrified that the serial killer and arsonist Richard Burgess is following you around. So I'm just like, get out
Mhm.
of here, Richard. You're embarrassing me. Like, you can't come with me. Like, and he did leave after like Sylvia's, but I was like, dude, like we had like a talk. Like, I don't even think I put that part on camera because I actually look insane. I should be more candid about how insane I am because I'm like, dude, you need to leave. Like, you can't. You're embarrassing me, Richard. Get out. Um, so I'd be curious to see if he shows up again. So every time that somebody says they're going, they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you should come with me." I'm like, "God damn it, I got to deal with Richard again."
I was gonna say, we'll definitely have to chat more about that. I definitely wanna pick your
Yeah,
brain. But thank you so much for being here today. I really
awesome.
appreciate it.
Yeah,
And for all of you, listening or watching, like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell to be alerted of future episodes that happen on Thirsty Thursday. And all of the links are going to be posted in the description. So head over to check out what you can connect with and learn from Nicole Nightfall. Thank you.
thank you. Well, Bree, I have to say, and maybe this sounds really disingenuous because I'm saying this on camera, and I wanted to
Hmm.
message you this after watching your videos, just really quickly before we go. You are a very good interviewer. Like some people have like a very like, here's my question, which is fine, but you're a very like, you've researched the person, so it's a lot of work. So I appreciate you. Just in general, I appreciate you. So thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. That made my heart
Yeah.
feel so warm
Oh,
because I
good.
do. It's part of my personality is to just like dive like really deep, and I do want to make sure that I'm respecting someone's time when they come. So if I'm asking someone to be on there, it's because I already know a little bit, and I've already seen it, and I'm like, yep, I definitely want to talk to that person. And I think sometimes
Yeah.
people, may not. They just might be like, let me send out a mass thing. Whoever comes, I'll learn them whenever they
Yeah.
get here, and sometimes that's fine if people want to do that, and that's okay. But when I hear the same podcast episode over and over again from all these different
Oof. Yeah.
ones, I'm sure that it doesn't feel great for the other person that comes to say the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm glad
Yeah.
that you got a good experience out of it too.
No, you're a very good interviewer and just how you word questions and stuff. Very good. It like reminds me of the guy from Hot Wings, like when he's like really like you have a very similar style, and I'm like, oh, this is great. So
I was
thank
saying
you
next
so
time I'll have
much.
to have like a take your drink each time I say
Yeah.
one
Oh, I'll
thing.
do that. You think I won't? Oh my god. I'll do a Hot Wings episode. I'll just die. You'll see a very weird side of me with that because I'll just be like mucusy and like gross too. So yeah, we should
That's
do it.
hysterical. I was gonna say stick around for part 2 one day
Part
where we
two.
go in it.
Hot Wings at Mid Orange where we do that. So
Right,
yeah,
if
for sure.
anybody wants to see a Hot Wings episode with, me and Nicole, comment down below, we'll check it out. Well,
Perfect. Well,
thank you
thank
so
you.
much, I appreciate it, and until next time, everybody, cheers.
Cheers.